After years of living under lies, I finally fought for my brother and won custody of my own life. Parents believed a girl's false accusation and hurt my brother. Years later, I ran away from home to live with him and fought for my custody and won. I, 14M, have been wanting to share this story for a long time. It's a long story, so be patient. I know it might sound like a lie, but believe me, I wanted it to be more than anything. This has ruined my family and I'm not allowed to talk because my parents want to forget what they did. So just to be safe, I'm using my friend's brother's Reddit to be safe. Well, my parents had lost their partners. My father separated from my older sister Lucy's mother, currently 25 years old. My mother lost her ex-husband in a car accident and had to take care of my brother, currently 23 years old. The vet turned them into single parents with custody of their children. The two met on the beach, and after they talked and exchanged their numbers, they started dating, and 2 years later, they got married. Well, let's stop rambling and let's get to the story. It all started when I was 8 years old and my brothers were 17 and 19. My brother was in the 3rd year of high school and my sister was working at the grocery store near our house. While my parents and my sister worked, I stayed with Kirby. It will seem strange, but the best moments of my life were when Kirby was with me. I know that a lot of older brothers don't get along with younger ones, but that wasn't the case. I loved Kirby with all his heart, and I know he loved me too. He always took care of me. He played and studied with me, and sometimes he took the scolding for me. Then one day everyone was leaving school waiting for Kirby in front of my school. Because our schools were close, so he always came to pick me up, but this time, it was different. He didn't come. I stayed until 4 p.m. when my sister came to pick me up. I asked about my brother, but she didn't answer. She just avoided the conversation. When we got home, I was surprised by the sound of things breaking in the house and the frightening screams of my parents. When we entered the house, the scene couldn't be worse. Kirby was falling to the floor as my father kicked him and threw dishes at him, and my mother screamed horrible curses at Kirby. I was so scared I didn't leave my sister's side, who took me upstairs and told me not to leave the room until further notice. I stayed there listening and crying. I had never seen my family like that, and I can say now that I am still afraid of them no matter how old I am. Then all of a sudden I can hear a siren, and when I get to the window I see there were 2 vehicles and many policemen got out of them and soon entered the house. A little later I hear more screams and a voice of arrest. Then I see my father and mother, they said, being taken by force by the police to the vehicle. My parents screamed horrible words at my brother, saying he was a miserable worm who deserved to be killed, and my mother always agreeing. After they were put in the car, I went downstairs, and man, that was scary. Lucy was crying on the floor with Kirby in his arms. He was completely bloodied and full of bruises. After that scene, one just remember that everything was a blur. I just remember being inside an ambulance in the hospital. It was more like a dream, but my sister disagrees and says it was a nightmare, and it was the worst day of her life. About 3 days later, my parents were still in jail for assault and attempted murder, so my sister took a few days off to look after me. So I finally plucked up courage and asked my sister what had happened. Lucy, being the first person to ever treat me like an adult, told me the truth. Our brother Kirby had been accused of rape by a girl in high school. The girl went to the screaming and bruised principal saying that Kirby had abused her. Our parents and the girl's parents were called to school, and even the police were involved. Although Kirby explains to our parents that he didn't do that, they wouldn't listen and took the girl's side. So when the police said they would investigate and run some tests, so Kirby and the girl were able to go home, and then what happened? Now my brother was hospitalized with the risk of having major physical problems because the beating did a lot of damage to his body. The next day the police called my sister to the police station, and she had to take me with her. But what they revealed to us was terrifying to say the least. Apparently it's Karen, the girl who made the report. Just a note, Karen, if you're reading this, know that you are the most despicable person I know. I hope you burn in hell, you bastard. You destroyed our lives. You bitch. I had made a false report because she and Kirby hated each other at school, and after another fight between the two, she hurt herself and planned to say he hit her. But then the pretty one escalated to a rape, thinking that she could expel my brother from school. But the bitch made a mistake, told her friends during a video call, and laughed about the situation. What she didn't count on was that everyone would turn against her, except her best friend, who really suffered sexual abuse when she was little, and no one believed her until recently. Karen's former best friend went to the police station and told the police everything, and also managed to record a little of the conversation after the piranha confessed. The police questioned Karen, and for fear of being arrested, she confessed the truth. My sister was pissed off. She wanted to kill Karen at that moment, but the police calmed her down, saying that Karen's parents would have to pay a fine for the false accusation and the slander. My sister thought it was good, but not enough. When we got back home, we're home, and as soon as my sister saw them, she exploded, said everything that had happened at the police station while screaming, and they listened in silence, getting more and more surprised with each sentence. By the time my sister was done, my mom was already in tears and mine was still paralyzed, and then he did the worst thing to that one. He asked, "Are you sure about this?" Man, that was the worst choice of words I had ever heard. Lucy gave a long speech about how there were bad parents to believe in that situation without any proof, and my dad tried to justify the girl's word was worth a lot, but my sister didn't refute it by saying that without evidence her words were worthless. I know that unfortunately many raped people are called liars when not proven, but this case is different. Karen lied and deceived everyone for a petty reason. I hope you understand. My father was defeated after that, and for several days the house was in silence. It wasn't the same without Kirby. He was the soul of the house. He was good and kind to almost everyone. He always brought joy to all of us. To this day, I don't know how my parents fell so easily on Karen's lips. I hate them for that, and I will never forgive them for what they did. After a long time, Kirby had woken up, but only to see his poor condition. For you to have an idea, his jaw was broken. He lost 60% of the vision in one eye. His arm and forearm were broken. His ribs were badly damaged, and he narrowly missed puncturing his lung. His leg was so badly damaged that he will never walk properly again without help, and for him it presented post-traumatic stress, depression, and anxiety. My brother was never the same. He still feels severe pain and needs to take a lot of controlled medication. He did not speak for weeks, and when he removed the device that put his jaw in place, it didn't change much. He only spoke when we asked a question. He didn't speak when he was hungry, and many times he started crying out of nowhere. I think it was due to the trauma. I wanted to hug him, but his wounds were so severe that it was risky. Many times my parents tried to visit my brother. My mother begged and my father wanted to force us to take them, but my sister forbade them, because she knew that the last thing my brother wanted was to see ours, and she told them that. But it wasn't enough. One day, my mother couldn't visit him because of work, and my parents saw that as a good opportunity to visit my brother in secret. I think in their minds it would be like this: let's visit our son, ask apologies, he accepts. We'll be fine and we'll be one big happy family again. Haha! Their serious mistake. As soon as they entered the room, my brother gave the loudest scream I had ever heard from him. Soon the doctors and nurses entered the room to try to calm my brother. He said, "Get them out of here. They are murderers. They have come to kill me. Please get them out of here." And soon after he started crying and soon passed out due to stress. Of course, then my parents were expelled and forbidden to see Kirby. That is, only my sister and I were allowed to see him. My mother cried all night, while my father kept putting the blame on our brother, saying that I was exaggerating. After many months of recovery both physically and mentally, Kirby was released from the hospital. My parents had the audacity to ask him to come home, however they got this response: "I would not come back to this house, even if IT were the last place on earth. From now on I am also motherless. I hope you both pay for everything you did to me." My brother moved in with his paternal grandparents who didn't know anything until that moment, and took a protective measure against our parents. He said that my sister and I were welcome to come and visit him whenever I wanted, and we did. If I did, I'm sure I spent more time with him than at home with our parents. But the last straw comes now, when we find out at a family party that my father had lied to our whole family, saying that our brother had dropped out of school to live in the world of drugs and that he left home, taking his things and the money we were saving for my college. That money wasn't even earned by them. It's Kirby and Lucy who are raising money for my college. Kirby has worked a lot of odd jobs and now he's working and saving money because, according to him, I deserve a better future. My sister and I got pissed. We told the whole truth to our family, who were incredulous and very angry with our father and mother, the only ones who stood by my paternal grandparents, who said that it was human to her and that my parents did nothing wrong and that they were just ashamed of what they did, but no one would listen, and they abandoned my parents to the wind and went after Kirby to apologize. Fun fact: Kirby called me the next day asking why people he hadn't spoken to in months came to apologize to him, and he didn't know why. A year after the incident, Karen's parents showed up at our door, asked if Kirby was home, and when we said no, they apologized for what happened and left. But later I found out that what they wanted was to pay his own severance pay to Kirby, giving him all the money that was for college and Karen's car. My brother said, "Thanks, but I don't forgive Karen," and said he'll never forgive her, and if she ever shows up in front of him he'll say hello truths in her face. Her parents accepted this and left. Currently, my big brother is much better, but he is not cured. He has many nightmares of that day which lead to anxiety attacks, and it is necessary for someone to go to him, to go someone to calm him down. I want to be there so much to help my brother, so much for me get rid of the toxic environment we call home, so I thought I would move in with Kirby. First I spoke to my brother. He was hesitant at first, but accepted and spoke to his grandparents, who agreed. I spoke to Lucy, and she thought it was a great idea, but when I spoke for my parents it was a completely different story. My mother burst into tears and my father was desperate, saying that everyone had already abandoned them and now his youngest son too. I got irritated and told him that I had already abandoned him that damn afternoon, and that he would never have me again back. My father, a man in his 50s, always said that crying was for sissies. He started crying like a baby, saying that he had already lost everything, and that he didn't want to lose me too. I couldn't stand that situation and I left the house, and came at a friend's house to vent. My friend suddenly scolded me, saying that I shouldn't abandon my parents like that since his older brother, who owns this Reddit, Steve, said he didn't know anything, and told him to shut up. Steve said that his brother was someone with a weak mind, and that I should see more people's opinions, introduced me to Reddit and asked me to ask this question at the end. What do I do, guys? Update 1. Well guys, a lot has happened since I did the last one. He wrote here I had a question, but thanks to you guys for making up my mind. Thanks to all of you for the supportive comments. And thanks to the owner of this account, who supports me well. Let's get started. I ended up having to run away from home because my parents forbade me to leave the house, so I waited. I waited for them to leave the house together because they were going shopping, and they never took me along, because they think I'm a kid. I'm going to be asking to they bought a bunch of junk, but I didn't expect it. Okay, my parents made me go with them. That was a big shit, so I thought I would just take basics and put them inside a backpack, and some would take some snacks to cover it up. As soon as we got to the market, I asked to go to the bathroom. Luckily, they were so obsessed about how the price of food had gone up that my dad just told me to go and come back soon. Plot twist, I didn't come back. I ran away from the market as quickly as possible and took the bus that came closest to Kirby's grandparents' house. When I got there, it was Kirby's grandmother who received her and told me to be at ease while Kirby and her grandfather didn't come home. When they arrived, I told everything that had fallen up on Reddit, and my brother's reaction was not what I expected. He said that he was very irresponsible for running away and that it was dangerous because something could have generated. It may even seem to come in, but I like it when he scolds me. It shows that he cares about me, unlike our parents. I could disappear for 3 days and they wouldn't miss me. That already happened, and they just got mad when they found out I had a brother. I accepted the scolding in a good way and asked if I could stay. He said, "You will come back here, even if I send you back to their house, so you better stay." I was very happy and hugged him. His grandparents were also very happy with my brother's decision, but my joy disappeared when he said that I would have to notify my parents. I protested as much as I knew they would come for me, but my brother said, "But they are responsible for you, and if you don't tell them, they can call the police and say that I kidnapped you and that I'm holding you hostage." I called my mom. She barely answered and started screaming at me, asking where I was. When I said where I was, they got even more pissed off and started screaming in an alien language in a way that everyone around me could hear. I could have stood there listening to them yell at me, but I hung up when I realized that Kirby was uncomfortable with the yelling. After the aggression, he became sensitive to screaming. He cursed my parents for what they did to him. I got angry and said that they could come and take me by force, but my brother said that they are aggressive but not idiots. They are. Already that he has a protective measure against which if they approach we would call the police. How wrong he was. An hour and a half later they were cursing and screaming my brother for generations to come. Kirby's grandparents told them to leave, otherwise they would call the police. This made them even more pissed off, and they went back to banging on the door. I wanted to go there and tell them to go away, but Kirby needed me. I needed to hold him because he wanted to go there. It shows those two in their faces. He has a lot of anger built up towards them. He even said once that he wanted to kill them both slowly and painful. I even agree with that, but I don't think he should get his hands dirty with them. Then they broke into the door and started to destroy the house in search of me. They started to destroy the house. At that moment I decided to go down to send them away. I was asking my brother to calm down so that I could go down and leave him safe. Then my mother gave a scream, the loudest I had ever heard from her, and my father had shut up. After convincing my brother to stay in the room, I went downstairs and the scene couldn't be more depressing. My dad was slumped and shaking on the floor while my mom was over him crying and calling to him in vain. I looked at Kirby's grandparents and I saw that the grandfather was holding a taser. I think we all know what happened, right? When my mother saw me, she started screaming, "You see what they did to your father? Call police. They must be arrested." I replied, saying that if I called the police, the one who would be arrested would be her for breaking the rules of the protective measure, which she ignored and continued to scream for us to call the ambulance for her husband. We ignored her, and we said that as soon as my father recovered, they were to leave and never come back. When my father was returning to his normal self, he was strangely silent. He was totally beaten and defeated. Then suddenly my brother had come down and my mother immediately attacked him, which gave me this beautiful dialogue, mad mother against angry brother. She started blaming him for everything, saying that he was the reason that all our relatives had abandoned her, that her children were turning their backs. That's when she started to victimize herself, saying that it was just an innocent woman who willed a church every Sunday, and that I was a good person who didn't deserve to go through that. I don't know what she meant by that. No one would feel sorry for her just because of that. Kirby was silent throughout her skinny crisis, but then she crossed all lines. She said he was supposed to apologize to them for destroying their lives and telling everyone in the family that you have forgiven them. That was the limit. Kirby very angry at a slap so hard in her face that she fell to the ground. My mother started screaming again, but Kirby told her to shut the fuck up or she would break her teeth on the base of the cane. He screamed a lot, all the things he'd held back all these years, about how miserable people they were, and how they dug their own graves and how they didn't deserve to have anyone around them, and when they die he's going to make a point of pissing on theirs. Coffins. My mum started to get even angrier and got up to hit Kirby, but I pushed her against the wall. She started yelling at me too, saying I would go to hell for abandoning her, calling me a disgusting gay who would go to hell. Curiosity, I'm bisexual and I made the mistake of telling my parents. Surprisingly, my father was okay with it. My mother was really pissed, saying she would go to hell and forbade me to be bisexual. She even introduced me to her daughters, her friends at church. It's disgusting and makes the girls uncomfortable. The funny thing was that when I told it for my brother, he just said, "So you give me a nephew? Let's be cool." My brother started to send them away and that they should pay for the damage they did to the house. Otherwise, we would file a complaint. My mother started laughing, saying that I wouldn't have the courage to report my own mother. I said that what I have most is courage, and that I would have the satisfaction of seeing her arrested again. So she made a bunch of excuses, saying that we didn't have proof. But my brother refuted her, saying that they were the very proof that they were there. Because besides from fingerprints, cameras, he had video evidence of what had happened. It took a little longer before she accepted her defeat, and soon they left, but my brother wanted to leave the icing on the cake. When my mother was getting in the car, Kirby shouted, "Hey bitch, I wish you could die in my father's place." And in response, she gave the middle finger and got in the car screaming, which made my brother laugh. You know that victory laugh after a long game of his favorite game. Yes, it was that laugh. Soon after, our sister called us saying that our mother had called her saying that she was attacked by our brother, and that she was supposed to bring me back home to fix me. My sister said she was very proud of me for standing up to them, and that Kirby was supposed to have broken the cane over their heads. Now I'm living with my brother as I always wanted, and it's been wonderful. He wants my custody at all costs, and is threatening my parents to give it to him for good or bad. My mother said she would not leave me with an abuser. I think she thinks the fact that I'm bisexual is because I was abused by my brother. How ridiculous, isn't it? I think now it's just a case of waiting for her to give in. I think everything will go on track for now because I had this conversation with my brother before he went to sleep. He was wondering what it would be like if his father was alive. I replied that maybe his life would be a little better, but he replied, maybe not. If he hadn't died, maybe I wouldn't have suffered the aggression, but then I wouldn't have my two angels in my life. And he gave me a kiss on the forehead. I must admit, that was so sweet. I hugged him. I love him so much, and I know that we will protect each other at all costs. Thank you very much to everyone who supported me. I hope that no one has to suffer what we suffered, and for those who think that our story is false, believe me, I wanted to. I wanted us to be a good family that welcomes and protects itself regardless of the situation, but no. This can only happen in my dreams. See you guys, maybe I'll update with the result of the process, so see you then. Update 2. Hey guys, thank you so much for your support, and believe me, I'm fine and my brother is better. But fine is not enough for him. He wants my custody at all costs and goes after my parents with everything he has. Well, I wouldn't be here if it was just to say we're fine. Let's get to the story. We were having a quiet afternoon until there was a knock on the door, which had already been repaired by a friend of Kirby's grandfather. I went to answer it but was very surprised to see my father there. I sent him away at once, but he said just wanted to talk and didn't want to cause a fuss. I told him to fuck off and told him we'd only talk in court. However, my dad insisted and Kirby's grandparents threatened to call the police. But to our surprise, Kirby said to leave him come in. We questioned him, but he just said my dad was a pushy idiot and he wouldn't go away easily, so it was better to let him in to get it over with. So we let him in, but we were prepared in case he got aggressive we would go to him. Kirby sat at the kitchen table. We all stayed in the kitchen for safety, and Kirby's grandmother was recording to have one more proof that my father broke the provisional measure. The conversation was as follows. Kirby, very brave of you to come back here after all you've done. Father, I'm sorry. I swear I'll pay for all the damage. Kirby, pay? Of course you can solve everything with money, right? But I'm not talking about material goods, that's replaceable, but what you did to me is priceless. Father, I know. I'm sorry. I swear I would give my life to go back in time. I would do everything differently. Kirby, yeah, but unfortunately you can't go back in time and the damage has already been done. You destroyed me. You destroyed your family. Father, but it was an accident. If you had told us from the beginning, maybe it would have been different. Kirby, more said fucking. You who didn't want to listen to me. Now do you know what you did to me? They made me feel that I was not worthy to live. You made me want to die. Do you have any idea what it's like to feel that? No, because you were a fucking assault, and the aggressor will never feel the fear that the victim felt. You son of a bitch. At that moment, Kirby started to cry, but it was a cry of anger and resentment that he kept for all these years. My father continued to ask in vain, but my brother said that the fact that he wants to apologize is not because he regrets what he did, but rather to feel good about himself. However, my dad kept apologizing so much that my brother threw his ultimatum right there, even though he was close to having another anxiety attack. Kirby, do you want forgiveness? So here's what we're going to do. You're going to give me custody of my brother. You're going to pay as child support, and you're never going to try to get close to me, him or any of us again, or else I guarantee you Ricard. Vertical bar, fictitious name, vertical bar, that I will make your days a real hell. My father agreed instantly. I'll tell you that I don't feel sorry for my father, but I've never seen him as defeated as he did at that moment. I think the shock of his actions finally hit him hard, but I don't feel sorry for him. He deserves this. He deserves to feel the misery he caused our family. Soon after all this, he left saying he was going to try to convince my mother to give up my custody. He also asked me for forgiveness, but I just ignored him. So at the exact moment he walked out the door, my brother broke down. I think his courage had dropped at that moment. He started crying and was on his knees on the floor, hyperventilating and sweating very cold. We took him through the room so he could lie down. We gave him his medicine for anxiety, but nothing seemed to help. I called my sister and told her everything that had happened. She came immediately, and we all stayed in the room trying to calm him down. My sister kept saying that my brother, that at that moment he was one of the bravest people we knew. However fearful he was strong enough to stay in the same room as my father, his abuser and his murderer. After many hours, my brother finally calmed down and managed to sleep, so just in case Lucy and I slept together with him, because he could have many nightmares after that. But of course nothing could end like that. My mom called us hours later asking what that demon/Kirby had done to her husband. She was accusing my brother of having bewitched her sweet hubby, and that now he wanted to give everything to him. My sister just told her to fuck off and said that at least one of them had come to their senses. Well, again, I hope everything works out and my mom finally comes to her senses and does the right thing. Thanks so much for everyone's support, and thanks to you, Steve, who owns this account and has always been there for me since I told mine history. While I'm going, I'll send you anything. See you later. Peace. For those wondering why I use fake names, I don't want my brothers to have their privacy invaded by fake names. Update 3. Hey guys, it's been a while. Well, you deserve at least the latest update, and I can say I'm so happy because it's finally over. It's really over. I'm free of that place and those people. Well, let's update that you liked it. My mother didn't want my custody in any way. My father threatened her in every possible way, but she didn't care. She said she would never give up on me, and that she would do anything to get me back. So since she was not giving in, we resorted to psychological pressure. We informed everyone in our family about what was connected and how my brother wanted custody of me. My family understood, and they attacked my mother directly, saying that it was the least that she and my father should do for the past shit. However, my mother blocked all of our parents, saying that my brother had spelled them all. Typical. The reason is seen as witchcraft, but my mother proved to be a totally understandable and out of control person. A week after I moved in, she called me. She said in that overbearing Karen tone, I'll give you 2 options. You're going to come home without complaining and we're going to forget about it, or you're going to come back and that plague is going to happen. Suffer the consequences. I didn't lower my head to her and replied that my brother had a name that she had given herself and that he wouldn't go back to that house even dead, so she hung up on me. I was afraid that she did something wrong, Kirby, so I called to let him know. He said not to worry and anyone would let me know, so it happened. The police knocked on our neighbor's door, an elderly lady. Very kind, in fact. The police had been called by a call of abusive minors in the house, and because they didn't think they left, I was quick to put the pieces together. My mother called the police, but she is in such an advanced state of insanity that she got our address wrong, which made the police go to the wrong house. As we knew it was her, hours later she called me saying that she could withdraw the complaint, so that I went home without complaining. Of course, I told her to go to hell and hung up on her. My brother apologized to the neighbor about what happened, and then he finally decided that since she wanted to play dirty, then we would play dirty too. We used our last weapon, our maternal grandmother, the only person we know my mother hates more than my brother. It was difficult to find her contact, because unfortunately our grandmother simply hates me and my sister for the simple fact that we are our father's children. Yes, she is the typical grandmother who has her favorite grandson, which in our case is Kirby, which gave us an absurd advantage. After literally hunting down her number or address, we finally found her. so my brother called her and told her literally everything from the assault to our current problem, and with the question if she could help my brother. And her only response from Grandma was that she would be here as soon as possible, and believe me, an hour and 30 minutes later she arrived in our city, which was good, because my brother only asked her to put my mother on the line, and she agreed to the deal. Which she agreed to do, and went straight to my parents' house for a surprise visit, which my mom just hates, and called me and Lucy asking if my brother had anything to do with it, which we just ignored her. It was even fun. Our grandmother was driving our parents crazy on purpose, and they couldn't fight back because I know my mother is greedy, and my grandmother has a good amount of land that if sold could support someone for a long time. That's right, in addition to assholes, idiots, and psychopaths, my parents are also greedy. I think my brother must have fallen into the wrong family, because it's just impossible. And after 2 weeks of torture for our parents, then my mother finally asks when she would leave. She replied that she would only leave when my mother finally gave up custody of me, which my mother did not agree and started wanting our grandmother to leave. So she played the final card, or my mother would give up out of my custody, or she was completely out of her will. Son or money? Guess which one won? So we went to court, and believe me, if looks could kill my parents, they would already be buried. The judge pulled all the history of what happened and got irritated while wondering how my parents escaped justice so easily. Well, in my opinion, unfortunately in our world money is worth more than someone's crimes. My father even hit his face, but my mother was there, confident, thinking that she hadn't done anything wrong. I think the most tense moment was when Kirby and my mother faced each other sometimes, believe me. If you were there and saw those looks they gave each other, it was scary. Guys, I sometimes forget that these two used to live together. My mother could pretend to be normal and be your friend, but she is fake and manipulative. If you do or say something she doesn't agree with, you are seen as a threat and are extremely criticized for it. My brother, on the other hand, has such an open mind that it almost scares me. He can make friends with almost any type of person. If you ever see a young man using a cane and he smiles and waves, you can be pretty sure it could be my brother. So answer me. Why, until now, I cannot understand. How could these two contradictory beings share the same body? Going back to the process, it was very complicated, but at the same time it was fast. After all, my parents didn't dare to fight for me, so our lawyer made an agreement where I stayed with my brother, and my parents would have to pay a very generous alimony. My mother questioned why they have to pay child support if I am now my brother's responsibility, but both my father and our grandmother told her to shut up and agree to the agreement. After a lot of time and anxiety, we finally got it. Now I can live with my brother, and they would have no right over me. Exactly 30 minutes after the results, I deleted my parents' contact. I don't need it anymore. They will now go to be part of a past that I will want to forget. But wait, there's more. Our grandmother made a revelation before she left. My mother this whole time was never in the will. Our grandmother took her away right after she married my father. It was even funny. She literally traded it for something she will never have. The only person in her will is my brother, and you have no idea how good that is from my point of view. Our brother, our Kirby, got everything he wanted and deserved. No, I don't know if I call it divine justice or something like that. But yes, he deserved it, and we couldn't be happier for it. I thank you, Reddit people and the owner of this account. I'm happy you helped and advised me through this horrible chapter of my life, and now it's ended with a happy ending. Even more personal. I hope I don't have to come back here unless I have to.